Okay, so I'm probably not going to be the most eloquent person in the world in explaining this, but I'm going to do the best I can. Pretty simple, so it shouldn't be too hard to get the point. Imagine you're going to buy something perishable, such as a gallon of milk. One of the things you look at is the expiration date. When is it going to expire? So I have a question for you. Why would you buy milk that you did not intend to use, like knowing it's going to expire really soon? Why would you do that? So, have any of you ever bought milk with the intention of not using it? Now, imagine you are a milk connoisseur, if you will, like if there was such a thing. Like it's the most rare and costly milk in the world. It's like the best milk ever, like a fine wine or something of milk. And you just saw the most rare milk ever for sale. And it was convenient because this super duper rare, super duper expensive milk for sale, and it's nearby to where you're at. But the price was like $1 billion a gallon. Why would you buy the milk that costs $1 billion a gallon knowing you might never drink it? You might just let it expire. So, have you ever bought anything ever that you never intended to actually use, knowing it will expire? Have you ever bought anything that was a luxury item and knowing it was perishable and it was going to expire that you did not intend to use? Okay, so I think we can all agree that pretty much if you're going to buy something like that, you're going to use it. You already know what you have need of it for. I'm not saying that milk doesn't go bad once in a while, right? But most of the time, you're going to at least use a portion of it before it goes bad or use the whole thing. Now, think about the red heifers in Israel. They will basically expire this year if they're not sacrificed. So if they're not used up by this year, then they get too old and you can't use them anymore. I might be getting that off slightly, but that's basically how it works, something along those lines. So they are about to, so to speak, expire. The red heifers. Pay a ton of money for them, send them out to Israel, and they're about to expire. So they need to sacrifice a red heifer to prepare the way to build the third temple. And the reason why that's important is it sets the stage for the Antichrist to show up. So why would they buy the red heifers if they didn't already know that the Antichrist was already here? Doesn't that make more sense? They already know the guy's here. And so they're like, oh, we better buy those cows right now because we have need of them. We got to get everything ready to go. So like they would just buy these red heifers, super expensive, in just the hopes he'll show up, knowing that they're going to expire this year, right? So after thousands of years, I mean, seriously, think about it. You don't buy milk unless you are sure that you're going to use it. So think about it. Why would they buy those heifers if they didn't know something that we don't know, right? You don't just buy red cows and hope, that somebody's going to show up. You must have already known that somebody was already here. All right? Does that make sense? That means the Antichrist is probably already here. Hence, or otherwise, why waste the money on these red cows? That doesn't make sense, right? They're preparing for something you don't prepare for something unless you already know, have inside information or whatever. That to me, that shouldn't be that too hard to get that. So, okay, I mean, like, would you buy birthday cards for some random person you don't even know it's going to be someone's birthday that day? But you're like, you know what? I'm just going to randomly buy a birthday card just in case it's somebody's birthday. Or would you only buy a birthday card if you already knew it was somebody's birthday? So you're already planning for that, right? See what I'm saying? So next, let's review problem, reaction, solution. Okay, that's the Hegelian dialect. Problem, reaction, solution. Okay, so let's just take a quick look at that little philosophy. So once you understand that the quote unquote solutions aren't created to solve the quote unquote problems, but the problems are created to implement the solutions. So it's kind of like backwards. That when you get that part, then you'll understand just how evil the people creating all these problems really are. Okay, problem, reaction, solution. So, you do realize that allegedly the CIA has been controlling the drug trade for quite some time. And it's no accident that there's all these drugs in the USA. I mean, they've acted like there was a war on drugs, but is there really? You know, when you hear these stories allegedly about them controlling poppy fields and this, that, and the other thing. So I can't be the first person you've heard that, rumor that the CIA, I got to watch what I say, so don't blame me for this. Allegedly, um, that the CIA has been bringing in the drugs all this time. They've been controlling the whole thing because they want the drugs to be here or wanted, etc. So there was a heroin explosion right after World War II. You know, right at the same time as Project Paperclip, right? Right then there was a heroin explosion. But most recently, drugs like fentanyl and others have exploded at the exact same time as the homeless issue with tent cities has risen, right? Isn't that a coincidence? Or is it? I don't know. Let's talk about it. So that's created a problem. That's the problem. From problem, reaction, solution. Problem. There's all these homeless people everywhere, right? And they're clogging up sidewalks, etc. That is the problem. Now you can think of that as an organic problem. It just kind of happened one day and everyone started doing the same thing. Or you can think of it as it's all by design. The choice is yours. Okay. But if you consider that the problem, then the next thing has to be, well, what's the reaction going to be? So the reaction is the public saying, we really need to do something about this. There's all these homeless people in tents everywhere. We need to fix this. We really need to do something about this. So that leads us to the solution. So Trump's plan is basically the quote unquote solution in the Hegelian dialectic. So, what his plan is to force all these homeless people into these drug treatment centers, like a forced incarceration of. It's kind of like a prison for homeless people, a prison for the druggy homeless people population, etc. I mean, I'm sure someone's going to argue with me about that, but before I finish up making my point, I just want to let you know I don't really have a pony in this one way or the other. I mean, at surface level, I can see how a lot of people would agree with on the surface of Trump's plan to force them to get the medical help with their issues, etc. And some people would say the opposite of that they don't like the idea. That's not the point. See, if you look at everything on the surface level, you're not going to get it. It's not about whether it's a good or bad thing or this, that, or your thing. You're missing the whole thing. It's not about what it looks like on the outside. It's the long range plan. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit. So, like I said, Trump's plan is to basically incarcerate homeless people due to needing drug treatment as a solution, like forced drug treatment programs, etc. Again, I'm not saying it's good, bad, or anything. I'm just trying to get to the bigger point here. So, well, what does this have to do with me? I'm not a drug addict. I'm not homeless. What does that have to do with me? Go Trump. Well, once you criminalize being homeless, it becomes your problem once the dollar crashes. Dun, dun, dun. And anyone who doesn't realize that the dollar is on its last legs is truly in for a big surprise. So once the money crashes, and they're going to have to do that to force the digital dollar or whatever you're going to call it, a lot more people will end up committing the quote unquote crime of being homeless. And by that time, so many people will be used to seeing people carted off, it will seem normal. So nobody's going to be upset by it. They're going to be indoctrinated into the idea that that's normal. And so, to make a long story short, problem, reaction, solution, I think the end goal is to make it so that people get used to being carted off to these internment camps. And again, this is partly going to lead up to the mark and what they're going to do with, in my opinion, with people who don't take the mark, because they won't be able to buy or sell anything So they're going to end up homeless. And so this already sets the precedent for that. So that's what I think this is up to. I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. All right. God bless everybody in Jesus' name.